like this, Tammy conveniently left a big timer up here for me to make sure I stay within my time constraints, I guess. Before I get started, I have to apologize to my 9-year-old twins who joined me this morning. They had a water bottle and an orange juice bottle, and they had it in their lap, and I said, put that down in the floor. You're making me nervous. You're going to spill that. So they put it under their chairs, and 5 minutes later, I promptly spilled my coffee all on the floor, literally almost on Dr. Pasternak's feet as he walked by. So I'm sorry, Kate and Leah, for getting on you for that. Some background on me, as you can tell by my accent, I am an inner city principal. You're laughing, but I'm a principal in inner city, Ducktown, Tennessee. So I started out, it seems like many years ago now, in an elementary school when I was 27 years old. The director of schools placed me at Copper Basin Elementary, and it's a pretty typical rural elementary school, about 450 students, pre-K through 6, almost 90% for introduced lunch. And my father, which actually I'm a 4th generation educator in our county, and my father, who had been an administrator for almost 30 years, told me, son, you have to be a teacher advocate. You have to be a teacher advocate. So when I went into the job, I really viewed that as my role. And we had no support structure in place whatsoever for any kind of remediation or anything. So when a teacher would come to me and say, I've got this kid, he's just behind, I don't have time to work with him, he's not on grade level, we need to refer him. So, okay, give me the, we never met a referral we did not like at Copper Basin Elementary School. So we were referring kids left and right, and at the end of my first year, we either had we had a population almost 40% either in special ed pull out, in the referral process, or on console. Almost 40%. And at the end of that year, I remember like it was yesterday, I was sitting on the front porch with my daddy, and I was pretty much bragging on what a teacher advocate I'd been that year, and I was going back over the year and kind of summarizing some stuff, and I said, my only problem is I don't seem to be able to keep a special ed teacher. And literally we had 2 in 1 year, and he said, and I was getting ready to move on with the conversation. He said, wait a minute, what do you think the problem is? I said, I don't know, he's got plenty of kids to work with. So and we started talking about the numbers a little bit, and he said, son, you realize that's a pretty overwhelming population of special education students you've either identified or in the process of identifying. And I said, well, yeah, but the teachers, you told me to be a teacher advocate. And he said, well, I figured it was common sense, son, that you would be a student advocate as well, and I didn't need to tell you that. So I said, well, what do I do? And he said, well, you do what all good administrators do. You become an unconscionable thief. And you steal a good idea and figure out what you need to do. So I spent the summer researching, and I Googled reading and help with reading. Intervention wasn't even really in my vocabulary at that time. And I came across some work in Florida, and they had this thing called RTI. And I thought, well, this sounds pretty good. The research is pretty good on this. So I stole a lot of stuff from Florida, which was pretty hard for me because I'm a diehard ball fan. So, and honestly, the the response to intervention part, it was almost like we are with PARC now. I'll give $1 to anybody that can tell me, besides somebody on the front row, what PARC stands for. We use PARC all the time. I was using RTI with my teachers, and we knew it was important, and we knew it stood for something, but it was probably 3 months in the program that we were response to intervention was what it stood for. So we implemented this program, and we had a 3-tiered approach, and with the blessing of my director of schools, I hired a reading intervention specialist. And I'm not going to get into the structure, but I'm here more about the results. And my teachers, honestly, it was nothing I did other than present them with some structure to work within, and they really embodied this optimism characteristic. I mean, because before they had nothing, and they were teaching to the middle of the road, and just hoping to drag along the ones that were not proficient, and the ones that were proficient, just hoping that they would not be bored, and they'd just drive on, because they didn't have another avenue. And so we progressed throughout the year, and we started doing this thing called PLCs without realizing we were doing it. We would meet after school, and there was all ladies in my elementary school, all ladies. So when we would have our reading meetings, our literacy meetings, I called it L squared, my literacy ladies. So we would meet, and we would talk about what was working, what wasn't working. And throughout the year, we basically spent a year getting a handle on it. Then the next year, we saw even better results. And within 2 years, we'd reduced our special ed population down to 9%. We had signed people out of special ed. We pulled them out of the referral process. And again, it was nothing I did more than just Google the right thing, honestly. And throughout that process, what I also started to see was how our whole group instruction, the initial instruction, was really refined. It was really improved because teachers didn't have to teach to the middle of the road anymore, because they knew there was a system in place that they could push students absolutely as far as they could go with very high expectations. And if they were a little bit behind or they weren't getting it, then we had a tiered system to help support them in this endeavor. So that was one of the best things I saw, that the pedagogy of the teachers really improved. Now, as a high school principal, I know that this is daunting for some of you if you're in secondary education, and mainly because you're talking about scheduling. I told a group last weekend with Common Core implementation that you're really tweaking teachers' pedagogy, and that's a very personal thing. Well, if you think that's personal, try tweaking a high school principal's schedule. So all I'll say, without getting into the dynamics of it, is that with creativity and thinking outside the box a little bit, it can be done. We're doing it now, and it can be done, and it's a worthwhile endeavor. And then you're probably, next thing you're saying, well, you moron, do you not realize all the things we're already doing now? You want to add something else. I'm overwhelmed right now, and you're wanting to add something else to my plate. My teachers are overwhelmed. You're wanting to add something else to my plate. These new Common Core state standards are going to be challenging, and some of these kids just aren't going to get it, I don't think. So why are you adding something else? Well, the beauty of RTI is that it's congruent with Common Core implementation. That is the solution for the kids that it will be challenging for. This first cohort of kids that come through, especially in high school under Common Core, they're going to need RTI. So it's not something additional you're going to be adding to your schedule. It will align perfectly with Common Core implementation. It'll honestly make your life easier. It will make it less frustrating for you. It'll make it less frustrating for the teachers and for the students, because there will be an avenue to help support them when it is a little too challenging for them in the classroom setting, and you can help support that. And I'll leave you with a final analogy in thinking about how we've been approaching remediation and special ed referrals. I think about the student as this very priceless, valuable vase. And we decide to display this vase on a little wobbly, skinny table right beside the door when you walk in the door. And we know in our minds, because we put it on this little skinny vase, that eventually that thing's going to get knocked over. So the solution to that, when it gets knocked over and broken, is that we need to invest in buying some really good super glue. That's where we need to put our money. Matter of fact, let's put even more money into researching and developing the best super glue we've ever had, so that when that vase gets broken, we can fix it. we can piece it back together, patch it back together with this phenomenal super glue. Here's a little bit outside the box thinking. Why don't we put our money into building a really good foundational table to set that vase on, instead of trying to fix the problem after the fact? So I would encourage you, I know you wouldn't be here unless you didn't believe in student achievement, student growth, and you weren't a student advocate. So I encourage you to embrace RTI. I personally have experienced the results I've seen my teachers get from RTI. So please don't look at this as another thing on your plate. Don't look at it as something extra. It's honestly a really great lifeline that is congruent with Common Core state standards and the implementation over the next couple of years. Thank you for what you're doing.